All right, everyone. Well, we are back and we are very luckily joined this morning by Andre Ewell. So, firstly, Andre, thank you so much for joining us today. You've got the beard comb out. I need one of those myself, to be honest. But firstly, look, Andre, getting straight into it, something about your career that I think stands out was that the birth of your child was a turning point for success. Whereas for a lot of fighters, having children or a family can actually do the opposite. Whilst you certainly have put in the hard yards and the road work at training, would you attribute the heights you've reached in your career to the birth of your children?
Oh, hands down, facts. That is 100% true, especially my first son. It was the whole start of the career because I literally gave it all up to be in his life. And then when it got taken away from me, it was basically, dramatic, guys. And everybody knows the story of trying to end my life and all that other stuff, of trying to get it back in his life, constantly keep being denied and whatnot, that I ended up making a turning point that I had to end up going into something that I'm actually great at, and it was fighting. So it was supposed to bring me a lot closer to basically be back into his life, and it was working in that direction. And then they hit me they basically took the chair right up under me, and after that, it definitely did break me. And then next you know it, I had another blessing. And granted that I was still trying to put it all together, as in last year, 2021, everybody knows it wasn't my best year, with the losses, but I was actually losing before I even jumped in there. It was mental health and all this other stuff because of everything that was going on, and I was on my back and me trying to please everybody and make everybody happy, that it took a toll on me, and then now it just led into the situation where at the beginning of this year that I kind of get the chance to focus on things, especially with my son now that I have him majority of the time. And with him, he ends up bringing light to everything that I end up doing. So it's every time I'm training, I look over, it's him, don't get me wrong. I had my little dark moments and it was really dark, but he's the reason why I constantly keep pushing forward.
Andre, that actually leads us into our next question, man, which is, it seems, from looking at your social media and recent interviews you've had, you do have a renewed fire and an energy about you in your training and your career. Was it the departure from the UFC that maybe pushed that fire along, or was it something else that sort of brought that renewed energy up?
I can go ahead and say it was an added reason with the whole UFC, but everything that was behind it, like my old managing, factors in that. I felt that he didn't believe in me anymore, or before that, like I said, of last year, I was engaged into like the woman of my life, the love of my life type of deal was my son's mother. And the same thing that happened with my first one, it happened with her in that direction, but hers kind of hit me a little bit deeper because, I reopened my heart for her and thinking things were going to be different, but it was basically me trying to please her, and everything I did wasn't good enough, and people end up understanding like relationships and stuff like that can really break people. And I know they got the stuff like, money over chicks and stuff like that, or over bitches and whatnot, boats and hoes, And to be honest, that's literally the mindset of what I end up having. As in, it's the thing is that my child is going to be in the same situation that I am, and he's going to be placed in predicaments where he's going to fall for somebody and do everything he can for that person, and then it's going to end up getting taken away from him, and he's going to be sitting there stranded, like, what's going on? Because everything that was going on, that was the person that I was leaning onto, and not knowing by walking away what it done to me. So it was beginning of the year, it was just me trying to rebuild, and that's a mindset, and everything kept on falling and falling. I basically got fired, and then my managing wasn't backing me the way they were supposed to back me. Like, I couldn't even get on the phone with them. Like, that was the sad thing. Like, I really couldn't get on the phone with them. So now I have a managing the group that ends up contacting me on a daily basis, that end up giving me opportunities and stuff like that. And now it's that whole 6 months of not doing anything, of rebuilding my life and rebuilding my mindset, is getting me where I am. Like you said, it's like a whole new fire. So it's basically trying to get back to the top. So if it's not with the UFC and I'm back, if I get the chance with PFL, one championship or Eagle, wherever the case is, and even bare knuckle, like, hey, I'm open to it, especially if the money is making sense,
For sure. So you kind of talked about it there, that some of the problems that you had were with your past management. And earlier this year, you signed with First Round Management. How have you found that relationship a few months in? And what have you found that they've brought to your career that was lacking in your previous management?
Opportunities of when I'm not working, basically, stuff like that. It's like, don't get me wrong. The first, I'm going to give nothing but respect because I'm not that type of person that just badmouth people. I never do it. So when people do it to me, it really hurts my feelings, to be honest. But on that, like they're giving me more of opportunities because the last management that I was with, it was small. It was kind of like a 2-man crew type of deal, and they couldn't do certain things. And I'm like the biggest guy that the name was on there, so it was only what he can bring, But the first round, they already have everything. So the only thing I got to do is fit in where I can, where I can get in, and they're giving me opportunity to build that money, to build that frame. Like right now they have a deal with Millions. I just got done doing a nice like a open hosting of a fight 2 weeks ago, and got really paid pretty nicely on that. And that was just the beginning. I'm getting paid for these promoting my shirts and everything, my little Afro monkey, going back to my old name. So back to that. So they're bringing things to the table. Hell, I even got I'm not sure how you guys feel about weed and cushion and everything, but they got me sponsored with that. So I'm like living my life right now with opportunities of smoking and stuff like that. And it's like it's been a good habit of breaking things down for me. And now something else, like my old management wasn't really into the smoking, or in front of the table ain't into the smoking, but back he probably did his own thing. But in front, and me, it's like I don't mind telling people my life. Like, it's like, because I've been through a lot. I'm 34, and I went through the ringers. My life, I shouldn't even be here, but I'm still here, I ended up having dark moments of trying to finish it, didn't work, or trying to finish my life and didn't work. And then it got back into those dark moments like last year, in the beginning of the year, how it happened. And like I said, when I say it's a full revamp of a new me, people don't really understand like how deep it really goes when I'm saying it's literally a new me. And, so clearly it's me stepping forward.
That's why it's amazing, man. Andre, something unique about the early days of your career is you had no amateur fights leading up to your pro debut. While it was a long time ago now, can you talk us through that? What was behind that decision? As I'm sure it was something you were pretty criticized for.
Definitely was, but they gave me that situation since I went pro in boxing and everything that I couldn't have an amateur career, and that was the mindset of what it was. But in reality, I didn't want an amateur career because it would have just took everything a lot longer to get where I needed to go. Because like I stated, I went from literally trying to end myself to going to court going to court with a judge that devalued me, like with a look, And after that look, it's cool. I'm going to end up revamping my life again. And I'm going to do what I'm doing. I'm going to go into something that I'm really great at, or really good and great at, and change that to something that I can make it in. And I told everybody I'll be in UFC for 2 years. And people didn't believe it. People look down on it. That's what they're supposed to do. They ain't supposed to believe it, especially if some stranger just walks up and says, "Hey, I want to fight." I was like that hidden gem. Or a gym, not the gym, but a gym. Like, hey, he actually had talent. He could do something, And every fight, like they brought it to the table, I took it. I ended up, there were fights I shouldn't even take, or I shouldn't even took. Like I had a broken hand, majority of those fights. I ended up, like my very first fight, I ended up getting spinning heel kick because they told me to put a helmet on. Right? Never wear helmets. So just know every time I wear a helmet, there's a bad thing that happens. So I pop on the helmet. Dude does a spinning kick, slices my whole right eye open. I'm talking like just gush. I end up sending you a picture in the future, but it was like gush. I had to end up getting like 16 stitches, right? And 3 days later, I fought with getting the stitches taken out that morning. So it was like one of those things. Like I shouldn't have even took my debut fight, but I did. I had a broken hand when I fought who was it? Tritmo. So I broke my hand fighting the guy that I fought before. I forgot his name at this moment. But I ended up fighting him at King of the Cage, ended up breaking my hand on that. 3 weeks later, I fight Tritmo on LFA. I had a broken hand, and I ended up winning that. And then 2 to 3 months later, I fought Dennis Paiva with a hand still trying to heal. So it was like one of those situations that I constantly keep breaking my hand. Like even when I fought Henry Brown, I broke my hand. So it's one of those situations.
Yeah, well, I mean, hopefully going into your next fight, you don't have a broken hand. And Andre, you obviously are scheduled for the Triller main event next weekend against Francisco Rivera. Whilst you are taking a little hiatus at the moment from what we could call maybe traditional MMA, if you were to decide to return to more mainstream, more traditional MMA, would you be interested in possibly joining Bellator? We believe that there are some featherweights there and that could give you some amazing fights, such as Mads Burnell, Adam Borix, Aaron Pico, and the rest. And have you ever thought about being a part of that mix? Would it be something that you'd consider?
Oh, definitely. And then random, I'm gonna put this part on pause. I got to go back. I was supposed to fight next week, but I got news like literally yesterday / 2 days ago that the fight got postponed, so it won't be next week. They got moved to August. So right now I'm trying to jump on the whole bare knuckle thing in June 24th. So like that's the push that I'm end up aiming. So if y'all able to start pushing that, let's go ahead band together and start pushing.
Let's push it. Yeah, we'll push the bare knuckle for sure.
Yeah. So that's the whole goal. Like, wasn't the whole talks right now. So everything's in negotiations and everything. But going back into the whole question, I would definitely jump in Bellator because I had the opportunity to jump in to fight somebody that was on there like 2 weeks ago that happened in San Jose. But it was one of those 3-day notice. And on top of that, it would have been a good fight for his first comeback and my first comeback, So he ended up going in a different direction. And then I got offered with the Eagle, but that was a 10-day notice, and they wanted me to fight at 155. And my first comeback at 55, that's just not the go-to move, Especially with there's nothing like behind it of saying, hey, we're going to sign you for X amount of or X, Y, and Z, And then I am alternate for the whole PFL tournament, or at least I was. But I feel like the tournament's already happened, so it's kind of like set and settled. But my mind is to jump back up into the whole game, especially with one championship. Like, it's like I want to be known. I want to be like the best fighter in the world, and I also want to have opportunities to box and do these bare knuckle things, and the Triad mixed fight. And I want to end up having those things where I'm able to venture off. Like, hell, if I want to go to WWE, I should be able to have that choice, Yeah. But I know, like, everybody in my management group is to try to get me back with the whole UFC. But right now, I need to be building up a foundation for behind me, because after I lost everything and trying to meddle, or basically trying to figure out what's going on, like earlier this year, I had like one of these like little mini awkward strokes type thing. This is going to be the first thing that anybody ever heard of it. This is me letting you know. I had one of those moments, and it happened in front of my child. And my boy's looking at it, and I felt very weak, and I couldn't do anything, and it broke me. And this is what I meant, as in people only see what I end up showing, but not knowing what's on the back inside. And like, I do speak on it, but when someone talks, they just, oh yeah, Dre's just talking. Like, like, hell, I have OnlyFans. I really have OnlyFans, and I'm telling you, verbally let people know I have OnlyFans, but they don't believe it. Like, until I like post the shit or post the stuff, and then it's like, oh damn, he really has OnlyFans. Like, I just have one just to have one, because people felt like I was going to do something, and here I just did it. But like I said, I was at a weak state of mind right there in front of my child. It broke me, and when it happened, I was to this moment like I had to end up doing a little change. Like, following day later, after seeing the doc and everything, and they were telling me this is that, and this is what you need to take, I went skydiving, and as soon as I went skydiving, all my pain left on the plane, But it was one of those situations that was needed. Like, like I need to do things like this, and I had to end up building a future. So anything ever happens to me, my boy has something. Like, like right now, his mom is going to school and everything, and I'm like trying to help the situation of pushing her whatever she needs. So anything happens to me, she's good to take care of him, So that's just, and granted that we're not on the best terms, but I try. But at the end of the day, no one loves Dre until they need Dre.
100%, man. Look, Andre, I know obviously you said next weekend's been postponed and everything, but we did want to ask you, how have you found the experience being with Triller, doing promotion and stuff? Obviously, with the fight being next weekend, I'm sure you've had to deal with them a little bit. How have you found that experience with them so far behind the scenes?
Pretty cool. I know we're supposed to knock out the whole recording and everything, and people that was like running that, they're pretty cool. They respectfully, they get to me, in time. But they knew like certain things was already awkward, but they couldn't like really tell or speak on it. But they kind of like, I would say, mentally broke it down to me of saying, "Hey," without telling me, "Hey, got postponed," type of ordeal. But they're pretty good. The matchmakers that's like running everything, and then Carlos, he used to run King in the Cage, and I think he actually still does. I was already good friends and like treated me like family and everything. They have awesome kids and everything, so. Since they were the one that was running, they were the one that put it together and stayed there and stated like, "Hey, main event, we're gonna make you that one because at the end of the day, you're the bigger name and you're the guy, and at the same time, you put on shows." So it was a win-win when I went with them. So background, Triller, they take care of you.
That's awesome.
So Andre, obviously this fight was scheduled to be in Triad Combat.
My bad, can't even hear you.
Sorry. Obviously this fight was scheduled to be in Triad Combat. So the fight was scheduled to be in Triad Combat, where it's obviously more of a hybrid between boxing and MMA. I can imagine that you were more focused on developing your boxing skills in this fight, but has there been any significant differences that you've noticed in this camp compared to your UFC camps?
I'm gonna sit there and say no, because I actually kept on to the same game plan. I ended up understanding, I ended up losing a certain edge, and when I was fighting with the whole UFC and everything, and the edge was that it was very aggressive. I was very aggressive with the mindset they didn't mind if anybody tried to wrestle me. Hey, I'm moving them, and what ended up happening, I kind of strayed away from my whole wrestling and the mentality of it. It's like everybody knows I have good hands, but I was trying to blend my kicks with my hands. And not knowing that it actually put a stop into what my real style is. I'm a boxer, and my boxing skills opened up my kicks, and then with the aggressiveness of a wrestling background of, hey, you shoot, I'm scrambling, I'm gonna get you off of me. That whole nine was going to end up developing or basically improving the style that I already have, and which has been my styles from the gate. So I actually stuck with less kicks, just more with the boxing and wrestling. And I have been nothing but amped up on it because, it's dirty boxing, which is, a little grappling, stand-up, kind of Greco style.
Like street boxing.
Street boxing, a little Greco, but able to add in punches and whatnot. So in reality, the Triad, it's more suited for my style than people actually know. How big the ring is, factors in how big I am, how long I am, and the fact is that I'm open and able to exchange with anybody and everybody. It's one of those things. I can move up to 55 as long as they're open to just strike. We're able to do that. But everybody knows going up to 55, it's a weight difference, and it's got to be one of those situations that you got people that are just going to end up sitting on you and just hovering and wait till you. X, Y, Z. People don't
big man
get
shit.
Yeah, it's the big man stuff like that. That was something that Khabib was really known for, where he could just hover you, ground and pound. If you don't do nothing, I'm gonna hit you. As soon as you do something, then kind of progress and do something, stuff like that. Where you have to end up being a black belt, a third-degree black belt, to be actually able to sit there with those type of heavy players. So my mind was to move up at 55, but it was going to have to be the smart direction, moving up to 55 of, hey, I'm already a black belt, and kind of handpick the fights of which one would honestly work for it. A 55 would have been a Conor versus me, or a Poirier versus me, or Justin Gaethje. Those three fights would have been good because they do jits, but they prefer to throw hands. Nate Diaz, that would have been perfect for me. At 45, I'm able to be where I'm at because it's more wrestling on the state of mind, but my wrestling is there, so I can sit with them. Hey, even if they end up trying to hover over me, I'm getting up. Why? Because good at 45, 30, good at 35 when I was down there. No one could literally just hold me down. They couldn't do it, And unless it comes into like the third round, I'm dead ass tired or whatever the case is, because there's only one person. But besides that, when I ended up doing extra stuff because it was like, hey, I'm behind on the cards, I had to get up. That's what happened. But if I wasn't behind the cards, I would kind of just hovered it, or try to work my way up the smart direction. Yeah, I would have been losing the round, but I would have got up and I got submitted, but I had to get up. So it's like those, like, you got to kind of have to put the things two to two together of from 35, 45 to 55,
Yeah, 100%. Look, man, Andre, last question from us, man. We really appreciate your time and your honesty today. It's been amazing talking to you. While we can certainly focus on your career in the past with the UFC, obviously moving forward, a lot of open doors, in my opinion, for you that are, doors that are opening up, different avenues for you now. What are some real goals that you want to focus on that you have in mind for your career moving forward from this point? Obviously, with the new management and everything, what are some goals that you've got going forward?
Well, I know one of the goals is make $1 million. Like, I already ended up like telling them this. Like, the goal is to make $1 million, and clearly more, because money can easily get run through, But the goal is trying to get a house, and I know for me to end up doing that or having something set for my child when I go away, or whatever happens to me, that everybody's taken care of. Like, that's the goal. And for me to end up doing that, I have to take these chances and these big opportunities, like bare knuckle. If that happens, I know a lot of people feel against it, but it's a sport that's built, it's building and becoming big, and it's more befitting in my style because I grew up street fighting. That was the life. That was how I survived. That was one of those situations of a life and death situations in my life, So those type of opportunities, it's always going to be a money step. And at the end of the day, it's like, I know people say money shouldn't be, basically your main source, but the money makes things go around at the end of the day. Like, if you don't have money to get to your destination, or money to end up feeding people or feeding you, feeding your kids, at the end of the day, money makes everything go around. So it's a money process because then it was just the love of the sport. But now I love the sport, but I got to get paid for me loving what I love to do. Like,
for sure. Yeah, for sure. Well, look, Andre, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute privilege to speak to you, and you've been an amazing interview. We wish you the best of luck in preparing for your next fight, and we would love to have you on again in the future.
Oh, definitely. Especially if they get me on the whole bare knuckle on June 24th, which they said it's a whole bunch of UFC vets, and I can try to be added. That'll be a time to honestly jump on. And then I want to give out a shout out to my fish, Weedy. He's
been the star of the interview, really. We've just been watching him go round and round. So there you go. Andre, thank you so much. We'd love to speak to you again before your June 24th bare knuckle debut. All the best, man.
Hey, appreciate that. Thank you guys for having me, man. Until next time.